Happy Facebook Live time. I am Melissa Kerman with Melissa's Crafting Treehouse, and I'm here every Thursday for my weekly Facebook Live, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time here on Facebook, and then I also post my video to YouTube, so you can watch it on the replay either on Facebook or on YouTube. I love to have you join in, whether you're live or on the replay. So anyway, I'm super excited for my projects today. Hi, Dean. I see people joining in. Definitely let me know if you're out there. Say hello. Hi, Pam. Missed you on Tuesday. Would have loved to have you there. I hope you've seen the post on the team page. Anyway, I digress. Hi, Barbara. Yay, glad to see people joining in. So I can't believe that it is June 25th. Anybody else with me on that? I just kind of freaking out that it's almost July. It's like nuts. So anyway, today I saw actually for the first time. I should have actually seen it a couple days ago. The new PDF for the holiday catalog, which is now being called the August to December catalog. It's a mini catalog, so we just had the annual catalog launch and now we got a new one coming. It's like, oh my gosh. I took a quick look at this catalog and it was just like, oh, there's some good things in here. So anyway, yeah, more damage to be done on the wallet. Anyway, so just in disbelief that it's almost July here. Yeah, I'm glad you made it in time, Bonnie. Hi, Kathleen. I know I missed other names out there. Anyway, welcome. I will catch up with you later saying hello when I watch the replay myself. Hi, Catherine. Yay. So, almost July 1, which is the actual pre-order for demonstrators for the August to December mini catalog that goes live on August 4th for customers. So it's right around the corner. Can't believe it. Now, you guys also know that there's only 5 days left of the promotions that are happening in June, one of which is the starter kit promotion. The other is the Hostess special, extra Hostess rewards when you spend $250 through the end of June. And then the starter kit special is a free bundle up to $60.25 value. That's the most expensive bundle in the catalog when you buy the starter kit. So that said, if you buy the starter kit now, starting July 1, you're going to also get access to the pre-order as a new demonstrator. So it's, again, super fun and exciting time of year. And of course, that August to December catalog is chock full of all Christmas stuff. Oh my gosh, I'm just drooling over so many of those things that I saw today. So don't miss out if you're interested in that Hostess special or the starter kit special. That has to happen before June 30th, and it's really easy to join on my website. So there is that. The other announcement that I have today is just a reminder. Tomorrow is actually the last day to pre-order my latest technique class, my June technique class, which is Dry Embossing Techniques with Vellum. And the pre-order essentially guarantees you, the option to get a materials kit. So I only cut so many. I usually cut a few extra, but not too much. The cutting and prep of those materials kits is a lot of work. But I know people love them and I love being able to provide them. So anyway, if you really want a materials kit, actually the pre-cut cardstock and embellishments and all that stuff, best to pre-order by tomorrow if you are interested in that. So my technique classes I offer every other month, in case you're wondering. They're a lot of work, so I try to, I just do it every other month, as much as I can handle. And it's a pretty robust class for anybody who's taken it. It includes a lot of material with it, a PDF, 2 PDFs, and a video, and 3 projects, sometimes with a 4th variation or more, depending on what I'm inspired to do. So let's see what else I want to tell you. So the class that's coming up in June, this June class, I'm using 3 stamp sets, the Forever Fern set, Today's Tiles, and the Ornate Style stamp set. And of course, when you get your kits, if you get kits or if you buy the class, you can use whatever you have on hand. There are some things that work better than others. I'm going to be showing some variations, but I like to let people know up front what the stamps are that I'm using. And to sign up on my website is, it is really easy. You go to the Tutorials and Classes tab on my webpage. And under that, the couple options down is Technique Classes Available Now. That's what you'll want to click on. And when you get to that page, I just want to sort of clarify something. There's two options, two buttons you can click on. And the first one says click here if you want to include product and get a materials kit. So if you're somebody who knows that they're going to need the products to do the class, it's always the best deal to do it that way, because basically you're getting the actual class itself for little to no money. You're putting your dollars into buying the product instead of paying me a class fee, if you will. So, and each option is configured a little differently. The more product that's in there, the less you're paying extra for the class. So anyway, so that's that. Click here. That first option is if you want products, you want products, and you want materials kits too. And the second option for click here is for the a la carte options, and that's kind of get it as you want it sort of way. So you can get one class, you can buy past classes at the same time, you can get kits, classes that are only the electronic materials that get emailed to you, or you can get classes with the materials kits as well as the electronic materials. So I've tried to set it up so that, you know, whatever flavor you are interested in as far as partaking in my technique classes, you can get it. So you can get it with product, without product, with materials kits, without materials kits. And if you ever have questions about it, please let me know. Try to share the information so that it's clear, but it's a lot of information. So just let me know. So again, deadline tomorrow to pre-order that class. All right, so I have some really cool projects today. I can't stop creating sometimes. Like I start doing something and I want to show you guys, and I just kind of go off on a big long tangent, and I want to keep playing and playing, and so dang it, sometimes I just do. And I get distracted from doing other work that I need to do. But so today I have, what I'm saying is 7 creative ways to use acrylic blocks in your stamping. So 7 ways. So on Tuesday, I had my team meeting, and we did a variation on this. And one of the things that I have discovered about my own personal style is I tend to start with the most complex thing. Like, go figure. Like, who would do that? I start with the most complex thing, and then I come up with simpler versions later down the line that I go, oh, wow, I could do this or I could do that. I guess I'm just a complex girl. Anyway, so what we did on Tuesday night was probably a little bit more complex that we're going to show tonight, but I thought, gosh, there's all these other really cool, simple choices of ways to use this technique, so that's what I'm going to show tonight. So 7 different ways using acrylic blocks. So without further ado, I'm going to face the camera down and start sharing. All right, so you can see I've got sitting out some of my acrylic blocks. Oh, I see. I'm not the only one who starts with the complex. Kimmy, it sounds like you do too. All right, so just so you know, there's the Forever Fern stamp set. That's the one we're using today. Also one of the stamp sets I'm using in my new technique class. And these are the dies that go with it. We're not using the dies today, but I just wanted to show you the pair. And when you buy them together as a bundle, you get a 10% discount. All right, so let me get organized over here with a few things. So, I'm not going to need that to start with. Okay. So this is version number 1. I'm going to put out my little post-it note there so you know what I'm working on here. Okay, so for this option, I'm basically just going to use one of my acrylic blocks. I can use any size I want, but I'm using the D size block. And I am going to use one of the new ink colors. This is the Bumblebee. And I'm actually just going to ink up my block. I'm literally just stamping, and sometimes you have to kind of rub and press because the block is just kind of takes the ink a little differently from a stamp. And guess what? I'm just going to straight up stamp it on my paper. And it becomes sort of a palette for you to stamp something else on. So that is option 1. I'm going to show you all of these and some finished cards in just a bit, but I'm going to show you the options for different kinds of stamping first. So this is number 2. So for this one, I'm going to take the same block and I'm going to sort of create some texture on the block in the way that how I ink it up. So I want it to be inked, but I can sort of pull it towards me to create some texture in the shape of of the ink on there. And I got a little bit on there. And then I'm going to go ahead and stamp that and see how that looks different. So instead of getting uniform ink, I'm getting a bit of a texture or some shape. Okay, so there's number 2. Number 3 is I'm going to swirl it and try to get a bit of a different kind of shape on there. Probably can see it only when I stamp it. I'm going to do that on the back side. So there's a little bit of sort of more texture with the swirl. So that's sort of 2A and B. Okay, on to number 3. So for this one, I'm going to add another aspect to it. So for this, I'm going to go ahead and just ink it up. And it doesn't want to get in the center there, so we're going to work on getting it in the center. Looks pretty uniform on there. And then what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to use my spray bottle and I'm going to spray it. Now this is just Whisper White cardstock, so I don't want to use too much water because this paper really doesn't take the water very well. It'll warp and, you know, look all strange. So I'm going to just do a few quick little spritzes, and that's going to change how the ink shows up on the paper. You can probably already see that there's some more watery texture, kind of more blended on there. And when I stamp it, you're going to actually maybe see it move around a little bit more. I don't know if you were able to see that or not. Oops. Or you can twist it. I'm going for like the block look here, but you could twist it and make something different if you wanted to. And now I still have a little bit of residual ink on there, so this is really actually sort of option number 4, so you can see that. And then I'm actually going to spray the block again. It's like second stamping or second inking with my residual ink like I would with a stamp, but in this case it's with the block. So then it's just going to turn out a little bit lighter or a lot lighter, but again just sort of a different look. So there's first inking spritzed, second inking spritzed. And that's my number 3 and 4. Alrighty, now we're going to get into some of the more interesting stuff. Alright, get my number 5 stuff out. Alright, so for number 5, I'm going to bring in some additional colors. And instead of using that D-size block, I'm going to be using this smaller block. I think this is a B-size block. And I'm also going to use my Cinnamon Cider, which is also one of the new in colors, and Granny Apple Green. Now, I sort of felt like I was in the fall season when I was doing these. But I really like fall colors, and it could really be any season, so I'm just going with it, because that's what I love. All right, so I'm going to do my bumblebee in the center, and for this one, I'm just going to ink it up. And the other thing you can do to add a little bit of moisture to your ink is to huff on it, which is basically sort of just blowing on it. So I'm going to do that off camera. Can you hear me breathing? Basically heavy breathing on block. Oh, that just came out sounding really funny. Okay, so adding a little bit of moisture with my breath, and I have to try to get straight over the top of this because I'm creating a little bit of pattern and I want it to be centered. Okay, so there's number one. And then I'm going to take my spritzer. I'm going to spray my block off camera. And I'm going to do this one on the back side. Now, I should also say that this is watercolor paper that I'm using here. So the ink is going to take to it a little bit differently. And I actually forgot one step. I like to actually spray my watercolor paper before I start. So we'll see how that center one looks different from the other ones. So to do that, I'm going to bring some paper towels in so I don't get my whole workspace a big mess. And I'm going to go ahead and just spray that whole surface, and that shape in the center is going to get, it should get a little bit more blurry or mixed up. Okay, so I did both sides. I remember what was side one and side two. They don't actually look that different. They usually do look different. Okay, the next ones are going to look different. So I'm going to clean my block off so that I've got all the yellow off, the bumblebee, and I'm going to switch to my cinnamon cider. And we're going to ink that up. And now I'm going to spray my block. Because I'm using watercolor paper here, I can use a lot more water, so I just sprayed that about 4 times, and you can see the ink sort of moving around a little bit. And I can already see that I'm having a hard time doing my centering because I'm not quite over the top of my piece. But look at that. So do you see how the water moved around when I pressed it down on there? So there's a lot more ink and it's a lot more blended, and that's more of the look I was going for than that one in the center, just FYI. Now normally I would actually dry that before I turn it over, but I'm not going to for purposes of time. And I'm going to go ahead and spray the residual on there and go ahead and stamp it in the same spot on the back side. So now you guys know that a lot of times I can't help myself but stamp on the front and the back of a piece just because I'm playing around, and part of it's just lazy. I don't want to get another piece out to have to mess with it. But I never know what's going to turn out and what I'm going to like and not like. So I just do both sides, and then I pick the one I like. And then the hard part is when I like both of them. But I just deal with that. So here is my Granny Apple Green. That's my last color. And again, I'm going to spray my piece just a little bit. This is the side one with the more ink on it. So my block is now inked up. And now I'm going to spray a little bit. Now how much water you get on there and how much actually goes on there is going to be completely dependent on how far away your water bottle is and how much you press your nozzle, because if I press it halfway, less water is going to come out than if I press it all the way. It's really hard to control, but you know, that's just part of the fun. And then what you get is, you know, a bit of a surprise. So you probably saw that ink just move around in there, and I had more water on there, you can see. And then you get some fun shapes and textures when the water moves around. And you can dab that off if you want, or not. Now I'm going to turn it over, and some of it's going to naturally get dabbed off, but I wouldn't necessarily always do that. I might just dry it and play with that texture. And now I'm going to spray the residual on here and do another stamping of what's left over. Second stamping with blocks. I'm going to turn it over so I get a little more on the bottom. So there we go. So you can see a big difference between this center one where I forgot to spray the paper and these ones where I sprayed the paper and then also sprayed the ink on the block. And then the same on this side, much more blended, these two, than this one. And this one probably didn't have enough water on the paper, so it's showing the ink sort of gets stuck a little bit on the paper when there's not a lot of water on there. But just interesting and different. So let's see what else I wanted to. So that's number 5. Make sure I don't forget any of the pieces for that. So I'm going to show you finished cards with each of these various options in just a bit. So let's see, where was I? So that's number 5. Set that aside. Number 5, side 1 and side 2. All right, let's get even more complex. 5. Number 6. Now for number 6, I'm going to use a full-size piece, a large piece of cardstock. That's actually watercolor paper, and it measures 3 3/4 by 5. I'll of course have the dimensions on my website as well. And for this one, I'm actually going to start with my green, my Granny Apple Green. I'm going to spray my paper, the whole thing. Let's see. Remember all the things I wanted to show you guys about this one. Hold on. Ah, yes. So, I forgot one step, so I'm going to start fresh, and I'm going to tell you something different. Okay, so for this one, I'm actually going to use 2 colors on the block. So this is variation number 6. This one I'm using the soft sea foam, and I'm going to put that on half of the block. I always want to start with the lighter of the 2 colors, because when I go over this with the darker color, the darker color ink pad's not going to be affected by this light color getting on it, but the reverse is not the case. So you don't want to get your dark colored ink on your light colored ink pad. The other way around is just fine. So now I actually have 2 colors of ink on here, the soft sea foam and the Granny Apple Green. And then I'm going to go ahead and spray the block about 3 times, and I'm about a foot away. And I'm going to stamp in the upper. I think I might need more water. Doesn't look wet enough. I want it to move around on the paper. So there we go. So I'm doing it in the upper left-hand corner. You can see the ink moving around. So fun. Now, if I were not doing this on camera, I would take that residual and do it on the back side. I would probably dry this with my heat tool so that I didn't have to worry about dabbing up the ink when I turned it over. And I'm going to actually just kind of let that move a little bit on there, just for fun. If I didn't like that dot, I could take a little piece of paper towel and just soak it up. I like it, so I'm going to leave it there. But I did get a little drop on the edge, so dab that off. I can also pull my aqua painter in if I need to and kind of color along the edge and dab it off if I want to control the shape of that shape right there, or if something happens I don't like, I want to remove it. All right, so clean this block off. I'm going to set that one aside, and I'm going to bring in a second size block. So this one has 2 different block sizes on it. This one is a C size block. And for this one, I'm going to stamp with my Bumblebee. Again, inking it up. Spraying it. I'm going to spray it off camera again, about a foot away. To hear my 4 spritzes. Looks pretty wet. And then for this one, it's going to be justified just to the right and down from the first one. Ooh, a little less water, but I got a lot more texture on there because of it, so super fun. Yes, I do think Cajun Craze would go really well with these too. Okay. And the colors are mixing quite a bit there. Oh, I just realized I forgot to do 2 colors. I meant to do 2 colors on that. I meant to do mango and the know. I was going to do Daffodil Delight, but it's okay. It's all good. So I'm going to actually take my paper towel. You can see it's kind of bled up off the top, and I'm going to dab it just a little bit so I retain most of my rectangle. I don't mind if it's up atop a little bit, but I don't want it to be too much. And this is where, if I wanted to, I could pull in my aqua painter and just dab it a little bit. I don't even actually think there's any water in here. And wet it so that I can pull up that color if I want to get back to having a straight line at the top. So it's a little bit closer to that, and I'm okay if it just bleeds out a little bit. Okay, and on the third time I do my coloring, I'm going to go back to my smaller block. I'm going to remember my two colors this time. And the two colors on this one are Mango Melody, and I'm going to use the Cinnamon Cider. So I'm just bringing in a second coordinating color for each of the first three colors that I used. And I'm doing my coloring a bit at an angle, and you can do it however you want. You could do it in a more linear fashion, or more like how I'm doing it. Now you can also use markers for this, for the way that you apply your ink. The color tends to be a lot lighter when you use markers just because you're not getting as much ink on there, but it is also an option. Okay, so now I'm going to spray my block. I did 3 on that. I think I might have been closer. It looks like the colors really blended in there. And then this one I'm going to orient differently. So it's oriented different from that first one, just to kind of mix it up a little bit. There's my last block. And again, I have a finished card with this basic look coming your way any minute. All right, so I'm up to version 6. So now we got one more that I want to show you, and then I will show you some of my finished cards. And if you guys are commenting, I'm basically ignoring you so that I can focus on what I'm doing. I apologize. Okay. So for my last version, let's close some of these babies up. I'm going to use my first original colors, my Bumblebee, and my Cinnamon Cider, and my Granny Apple Green. And just so you know, I have not done this version before, so it's going to be a bit of an experiment for me as well. I always like to do a little bit of creative play live. So there's my number 7. Now this piece is a similar size to the one I just was playing with. I think it's maybe an 1/8 of an inch smaller, but very close. All right, and I'm going to be using my large E-size block for this one. And now this is this method is actually, it's a lot easier to do on a bigger block to bring in multiple colors. So I'm starting with my lightest color, which is my Bumblebee, and I have my ink pad at an angle, so I don't want to cover the whole thing. But my Bumblebee is my lightest color, and it's going to be the color that bridges between the other two colors that I'm using. So I'm going to have Cinnamon Cider down here at the bottom. And I think these colors are going to look really pretty together. We'll see. And then Granny Apple Green. And this up here. So again, if the green, this green overlaps the yellow, it's not going to be such a big deal on this darker green color, but the reverse would be more of a problem. All right, so you can see I've got all that lovely, fun, rich color on there. And now I'm going to go ahead and spray it well. It's 4, 5, 6. And I can see that I've got a little spot where I didn't get any color at all. I'm going to take my aqua painter and just move it around a little bit just so that I get a tiny little bit of yellow in there. And then I'm going to remember to spray my paper just a bit. I can even use my aqua painter to color over the whole surface if I want to make sure I've got uniform moisture on the watercolor paper. I totally adore watercolor paper because it's, I don't know, the ink just moves on it in such fun, interesting ways. Okay, so you can see it moving on there, which just makes it so fun. Look how pretty that is. I don't even want to move it. It looks so pretty. What do you guys think? Oh yes, perfect for cutting backgrounds or even cutting out fall leaves with dyes, yes. Okay, so now here's the tricky thing, because I don't want my green to get in with my cinnamon cider. So I'm going to go, how am I going to go? Off to the side, maybe. Ooh. Ah, I like it. What do you guys think? Now I could actually have turned this over and used the residual ink on here, and then it would just be a lighter version of what I have here. But as you can see, I'm just letting that droplet of the green move to the right. And again, I could sort of clean up that edge if I wanted to, but I'm just going to let it be organic and keep it just as it is. And I'm going to take my heat tool and just take it to it just for a sec to dry it and see what it looks like dry, because it will look slightly different. So here we go. So you have 2 settings on your heat tool if you have a Stampin' Up! Heat tool. I just put it on the high setting, which is really intended for heat embossing, but I just want to do the high setting because it'll go faster. I'm going to take a little bit of the ink off that edge. So as it dries, the paper's going to flatten out, and it has to be really bone dry before you stamp on it, especially if you're using the Jet Black StazOn, which is what I've typically used in this particular scenario. The StazOn is a solvent-based ink, so when I have stamped on it and it's been wet, the ink sort of just doesn't take to the paper. So you can see it's flattening it out as it dries. All right. So you can see how the colors kind of blend and mix in there. Now I have not done a finished card with this one, so you won't see one with this, but I'm going to show you some of the other ones that I've done with all the different variations. Get these guys tucked away. All right. Set that one aside for the moment. All right, so, oh yeah, that one ended up being kind of lopsided. Let's start at the beginning. Okay, so for number 1, 2, and 3, I actually have one card that's close to being done, so I'm just going to show you it. This is the simplest. This is, you know, like a level simple that I don't often do, but I really like it anyway. Even still, so I just have a basic card base that is the bumblebee with some of this lovely gold thread on there. That's part of the Forever Fern suite, I believe. And then I've done one of my focal pieces that is most like this one. That was the spritzing on there. I didn't attach it because I wanted to show you the back side, because that was my stamping number 2. Now, this image is longer than that image shows up there, so I used a Post-it note just to mask at the bottom when I stamped it. And I do already have adhesive on the back side of this, but just wanted to show you as a point of information. And then I'm just going to go ahead and attach that to the front of the card. So this is about as clean and simple as a card you'll ever see me do. And I can totally see these being the same thing, just with the different texture that I've got there. So you've got, that's the stamped off side, that's the swirl, that was the streak, and that's just straight on stamping. So there you've got your card version for that one. And then for this one, version number 5, I've got this finished card right here. So I just stamped on the bottom, and I dry embossed this layer right here. So do I have one that I did in here? I think I might have. Yeah, I do. Well, anyway, so this is dry embossed. Now, I actually, believe it or not, I stamped that sentiment on this dry embossed piece after it was dry embossed, and it actually worked. So I was kind of surprised. I see you have some stamping suggestions, Kimmy. I'm going to have to take a closer look when I can focus. So anyway, so I did these, of course, stamped in the same way that I described. I used my Post-it note to mask, in some cases on more than one side, to get my images in the little boxes. And of course, and I'm using early espresso ink to stamp in those boxes as well as to stamp on here. So again, that's a pretty simple card. So that was number 5. And now I think for this next one, I wanted to show you a few additional things. Which one should I do it on? Let's go ahead and, I guess I'll do it on the last one. So on this next card, I did a couple different versions. One of them I did on watercolor paper, just like this one. I'll show you that one first. No, I'll show you that second. So I did one on very vanilla cardstock. So you can see this is more of a vanilla-y look. And I did just the straight stamping of the individual colored blocks, and did some stamping over the top with the Forever Fern. And then on the back side, that was my stamped off images. Actually, which was stamped off? No, actually, I think this was my first stamping. And then on the back side was the second stamping with water. So you can see they both look pretty, I think. And then that'll just get attached to the front of the card like that. So just simple. And then my watercolored one is going to get attached with dimensionals. I don't usually put dimensionals on my card first, but I wanted to show you the front and back of this piece of watercolor paper before I attached it. So here is side 1. This one I used the 2 different colors of ink on each block. So this was the soft sea foam and the granny apple green. You can see the darker green around the edge. And the cinnamon cider with the mango melody. And then this one was the bumblebee with daffodil. And I did another little technique on those watercolor blocks. I'm going to show you that on my big piece at the end. And then the back side was the second stamped image, or shape of the block, I should say. And you can see it's sort of got less color in it, especially with the yellow. But you might be able to tell that I used a little bit of my Wink of Stella on those flowers. I'm sorry, on the leaves. And they look really different. Now, I'm stamping with early espresso ink here, which is a water-based ink. And so when I colored it, you can see the difference between that and that. It's pulling some of the brown in there as well, as it makes it shiny and shimmery. So I think that's a really pretty look. And I just wanted you to see the rest of that before I finish coloring it. So it's just different. I did that one already colored. That one's not colored yet, but I really like the look. What do you guys think? Who's a Wink of Stella fan? I know most of you are probably Wink of Stella fans. Okay, and then this side, of course, is without the Wink of Stella, so you can see a lot more of the detail of the stamp. It gets blended a little bit on this side, but this is one of those ones where it's really hard to decide for me between the front and the back. But I do especially love how the colors blended and mixed in those 3 blocks, so this is likely going to be the front. So there's that. And if you use your Wink of Stella on ink like this, it's going to pull up some of that early espresso on there. So you do want to make sure to wipe it off. And just to prove it to you, you can see I'm doing that and it's got a little brown on it. So you don't want to leave that residual ink on your Wink of Stella brush because it's supposed to be clear shimmer. So let's just go ahead and commit to this and attach this so you guys can see the actual finished card. It'll take me just 1 second. And then I'll go ahead and do the last little trick that I wanted to show you on my large piece of watercolor paper. It's one of my favorites. It's easy to forget, but it's just a fun, simple thing you can do. And then I also want to show you a little bit of the projects that I showed to my team on Tuesday, because I think they're so pretty, and of course they're variations on exactly what I'm showing you today. So I think this is my favorite one. I don't know about you guys. I would like to know your favorites. This is sort of like the beginner stamper, the casual stamper, and then the avid crafter. At least that's how I'd categorize them. All right, so I'm going to move some of this stuff aside, and I'm going to show you this other little trick that I like to do on my version number 7. Bring my paper towel back in. So I'm going to take my water, my spritzer bottle, open it up, and I'm just going to flick some of the water, that's the residual water that's sitting on my little water tube, onto my watercolored piece. Comment and let me know if you've seen this before. You could also use a dropper if you wanted to drop droplets on. I'm going for something a little bit more organic and simple. Gotta do one more. And I don't even know if you guys can see the water on there, but there are little droplets, droplets of water on the surface. You can see them as they shine in the light. And then what I'm going to do is turn this way, and I'm just going to dab up that water, and it's going to reveal the specks. And it's just kind of a fun, almost if it was blues, it might look like a night sky. Just fun. Oh yeah, toothbrush, that's a good idea. So, and to the extent you want to control the size of the droplets or how many, you can play with it however you see fit. So anyway, I think that's kind of fun. And then you can stamp over the top if you want to. Okay, so last but not least, I'm just going to show you some of the projects that I showed my team on Tuesday. So I used a different color palette. The Tuesday projects were Soft Seafoam, Mint Macaron, and the Seaside Spray, one of the in colors. So this was my simple card. And so you can see the colors in there. And of course, instead of just doing it on a solid panel of cardstock, I did it on a small piece of watercolor paper. That's the D size block. Card number 1. This second card, I used my, let's see, I think it's the I block, which is, where is my I block? Anyway, you can tell the shape, of course. It's a long, thin block. And just did that on here, and then I masked to stamp my images, and I did some first inking and second inking for my images, again from the Forever Fern stamp set. This was project number 3. And I also used the eye block here. You can see it just went off, you know, it's bigger, but it just spanned in the middle, and then stamped my image there. Who doesn't love this Forever Fern? I love the Forever Fern. And then finally, we made a folio to go to have the cards fit in. So this is the size. That is that last focal piece that is now in a pile over here somewhere. Where did I put it? Anyway, it's the same size. So I could stamp that piece with these same images. I would just mask on the edges. I'm obsessed with finding it. There we go. So obviously, this is the same size as this one. So I could change up these colors. And I'm just going to open this up so you guys can see. Just got the ribbon attached underneath that focal piece. The focal element is up on dimensionals, and then it opens like that. So this was inspired by Pam out there. She said, I want to see a set of cards with a case to go with it. So this was inspired by Pam. So of course my cards would fit in to the side. So you could do the same exact thing in the color scheme that I just showed today, and there are only 3 cards in there. It probably fits probably a 4th with the envelopes, and there you go. This was very fun to make and show. So let's grab all of my different fun variations to one last. You guys can tell me what your favorites are. I love knowing your favorites. Or if you're inspired to do your own different color scheme. I know some people on Tuesday said they wanted to use the new in colors with this technique. So as you can see, like totally different color scheme here versus what you can see in here. But I tried another color scheme. I was thinking, well, I really should do like a spring color scheme, and it just didn't work for me. So I just went with the fall, what I think of as fall colors. So, and of course these guys will get made up or given to somebody into cards just like these guys. So I hope you guys have enjoyed seeing my 7 creative ways to use your acrylic blocks and inks, and I hope you guys will play and have fun with it. I'm going to go ahead and turn the camera around. Yay, hearts from somebody. Thank you. Okay, let's do the flip and then the other flip. Yay. Did it. So I hope you guys have enjoyed that. I wish I were able to pay attention to your comments at the same time as I'm demonstrating, because I always love to know what you're thinking as I'm doing it, but I'll have to go read them after the fact. So as always, I'll have photographs of my projects, and I'll post them to my blog tomorrow with dimensions and supplies and all that good stuff, so you guys can play. And let's see what else. And I guess just the final reminders, just 5 days left until the Hostess special is over and the starter kit special is over. Let me know if you have questions or comments or thoughts on any of it. And I am always happy to have a phone conversation with anybody that might have questions also. Much more direct way to communicate with somebody than Facebook and emails and whatnot. So, and I love hearing people's voices. It's the real person, not just text on a screen. So let me know if you want to speak on the phone. And that goes for anybody, really, if you have a question. So let's see if there's anything else. Oh, and of course, tomorrow's the last day to pre-order my class, my new technique class. So let me know if you have questions about that too. So I guess I'm all done. I will look at your comments later, and I'll look forward to hopefully seeing you next Thursday, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time here on Facebook for my next Facebook Live. And thank you so much for being here, for joining me, and for watching on the replay too. Oh, good. I'm so glad that it was really fun. Thanks, Kimmy. Look at your comments. My pleasure, Diana. I'm sorry, Diane. Looked like there was an A at the end. I knew that. Anyway, we'll see you next week. Thanks, everybody. Happy crafting. Bye.